Welcome everyone to Enlightened Masculinity. We're talking about exercise and rest today, the balance between the two, and we're going to give you some insights that you probably haven't heard before, but also maybe some datums that you have heard before. But we're giving it to you from the perspective of a PhD yoga scientist, of a big farm biomedical research scientist and yoga teacher, and with our new awarenesses of masculinity and where is this going to play a role in your exercise and rest. You're on Enlightened Masculinity. Thanks for tuning in. You can always leave us a comment or review in the bio if you're in the reviews if you're catching this on iTunes. We're on all the major platforms right now, and we're very excited to be here right now. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Yogi Chris of Ninth Limb Yoga. This podcast is sponsored by Ninth Limb Yoga, so shout out to #Ninth Limb. I am a PhD. I travel the world teaching yoga, and I'm author of many books, host of many podcasts. Very excited to be here right now. And my co-host is a research analyst, a biotech research analyst for Big Farm in New England. He's also a registered yoga teacher, and he's building a yoga following there in Montclair, New Jersey, called the Rising Suns. And welcome to the show, Akash Inti.
Hey, brother. Thank you for having me on. Excited to talk about this topic and really interested in delving deep into this. I mean, I think both of us have very unique backgrounds to be talking about this topic, coming from it at both the same and opposing perspectives simultaneously. I guess just a quick little bit of background as to why I was interested in this itself was largely due to recognizing my limits this past week, physical, mental, emotional, and recognizing that just as important as it is to move forward and push ahead and set a course and continue to achieve goals and hit them, it's just as important to sit down and rest and simply be. So I thought I wanted to start first with asking you, what does health mean to you? You are a yoga teacher, so and you are a PhD as well. So what does this mean to you? It's a really big loaded word, and it's something that we hear about quite often, and people have a general sense of it, but I think it's really important to get the base foundation definition of it. So what does health mean to you?
I'm sure there's a really rigorous definition of health. I actually didn't like this definition once I was in Italy, and there was this girl I was trying to talk to, and I mean, we had known each other for a while. It was one of those strange situations where we knew each other when we were in high school, but she had been a German exchange student. She was a fine German exchange student. She was 1 year ahead of me. We both played on the same, we were runners. We ran on the cross country team together. So then years later, when I had come into my manhood, 10 years later, and then I'm there in Italy and she's there in Italy. And so we're interacting, hanging out a little bit. One time we were out eating and she says to me something like, I forget why. I think at the time I was just getting into Arashti Bazaar. It was the first YouTube videos that I had found of AZD. I don't know why we were talking about socializing, or I don't know what the subject was. She said something about she worked for the World Health Organization or something. There was WHO had this definition of, maybe it was the definition of health. There was a physical health, a mental health, and a social health. So, I mean, I would put in, emotional or whatever. Mental, physical, I think is pretty good, splitting it up. But then social health, I think, is a really important one that goes unnoticed. Having friends, but the quality of your friends. It's like saying that I have a gym membership or I go to the gym, but then it's the quality of your workout. It's like saying I eat healthy, but then you go and look at what they're eating and it's what they're doing is reading the bag of chips and it has enough protein in it or something. It's that's not healthy. Just because you're reading the nutrition facts, if it's processed like that, I'm not saying don't eat that. I'm just saying don't fool yourself and consider that healthy. That's, a baked, starchy, sugary, whatever. So I would just kind of go with that. I don't have too much interest in having a rigorous definition of social health, mental health, emotional, physical health. I think if you have these things, however you define them, then you'll have health overall. But you can also break those down more. I think in mental, you would have more of emotional health also. That would be part of mental. In social, you would have intimate relationships, friendships, business relationships, relationship health. And all three of those, I think, really play together in just the idea of health. Because if you have two of those, like let's say you have physical health and quote mental health. If you have mental health and physical health, you're going to have social health. But if you think you have mental health and physical health, but you have no social health, then you're not going to feel imbalanced. You're going to feel lacking. Same with the other. If you think you have mental health and social health, but physically you don't, then you don't have health. You got physical health and social health, but mentally you don't think you have health, and you don't have health. Like, but if you have all three of those, I'm wondering, do you think you could have unhealth if you had mental health, physical health, social health? Is there another dimension of health that is not addressed by those three? I'm wondering if you have an opinion.
Yeah. So it's really funny. This was probably a few months back, maybe a year back. I was going to this networking event in New York City, and I was meeting with a bunch of biotech investors and getting to know them. Well, this one investor, she's a venture capitalist. She has her own, she's like 23, 24, but she has her own fund. She's been working at like Stanford for years and whatnot. And the first question she asked me is, what does health mean? And I was kind of like taken aback. I'm like, whoa. That's like a really big question. The first thing that came to my mind was the alignment of mind, body, and spirit. I didn't even consider the social context to it at the time. But the more that you mention it, the more that I think that's just as an important category. So to answer your question in short, I think there's also spiritual health. You can be sound, you could have sound mind, you could have sound body, you could be socializing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you are in touch with, I guess, all of the realities that are able to be tapped into. I'd say that's a health in and of itself. A bit more, it's not as grounded in reality, if you will, but I think it's just as important a concept. So that would be the one that I would add. So it sounds like there's 4 components.
You would add spiritual, you say?
I think so. I mean,
what
it
is
could be
what is that?
otherwise. I think it's getting in touch with like the essence of your being, being in touch with that.
What does that mean? Like, I don't know that would have meaning. And I think sometimes like, how would my father process this? Understand, like getting in touch with your essence or your being. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, in other words, I'd say it's the ability for you to be at ease with nothing happening or everything happening, like
at ease with nothing happening.
Or every, like, I think that's I think that's a large component of spiritual health is, and you might call this mental health. I mean, it depends on, you can cut the pie in a bunch of different ways and call different slices different things.
That's interesting. Yeah.
To me, it's the ability to be able to either to completely sit with yourself and be totally at ease, or be in the mix of the most chaotic events in the world and be and still be at ease, or if that makes sense. I think health is also synonymous with ease, right? So disease, for example, is the absence of health. So there's some word language, if you will, or word magic going on between ease and health, at least in the English language, because disease is the absence of health.
I could see that. You know, also, like, I would even say like dis-ease, because disease is going to be very like specific to certain syndromes, you could say, or certain qualities of the being. Like, let's say I have dis-ease in one area, like what would be an example? Like, I have dis-ease in my stomach, but not dis-ease in my throat, or not dis-ease in my heart. And other certain body parts or certain functions could not be in dis-ease, while others are. So there's not health maybe in that area, but there is health in this other area. So dis-ease is like a sliver of the pie. And I like what you did there, like ease being related with health. Spiritual health is such a, wow, that's so fascinating. You know, because the definitions as you give them, I think that there could be something called spiritual health. I don't know that we've touched on the nerve of it yet, the actual like see spiritual health. That's such a fascinating idea. You know, like the ability to sit with yourself could be considered like mental health, right?
Right.
or the ability to be centered in yourself in the midst of like chaotic motions or whatever. Could be like emotional health, mental health. To find something spiritual that is beyond the mind. Spiritual, because everything that could be categorized inside the mind would just be mental health. So what do you guys think? Anybody that's on, what is the spiritual health? Because that's such a interesting combination of words. Like I don't know that I've heard people talk about spiritual health. Maybe I've heard someone say like, I'm spiritually healthy. But of course that suggests that there was such a thing as like spiritual health. What the hell does spiritual health mean? We got Andra's in Europe. He says, in my language, it's power and no power. The root word
interesting.
Ease.
I think for health, so the root word of health is power or no power. The ability to have power or no power. That's interesting.
Wow. Yeah, man. I think a lot can be found about the truer meanings of words when you hear how the words are in many different languages.
Completely agree.
In those languages, like the word affects your system. Like if it affects their system slightly differently than it affects ours, and a third person it's slightly differently. Somewhere I like to think of words as like almost like Venn diagrams, like where they over is the actual kind of concept of that word, where the Europeans concept and the Spanish speakers and the American speakers, and where we overlap on this idea of like health is a truer essence of this kind of health.
Yogi Chris, I really, really enjoy that imagery that you use there in terms of using Venn diagrams for words. That's really, really cool.
Thank you. Well, I'm in hella distress right now. Girlfriend is trying to break up with me, saying I'm breaking up with you. And, it doesn't feel good. Give a lot of time to somebody and then they say something like that. It's like, man, what do you do? She does this right as podcast starts. So this typically happens. If I'm in distress for podcasts, I just like giving away knowledge.
The other thing, so Yogi Chris, I wanted to talk about the concept of exercise as well. I mean, we're both yoga teachers.
All right.
Exercising very, very regularly. Why is exercise important? I mean, it sounds like it would be an easy thing that's like, oh, well, this is why you do it. But I'm sure through both of our practices, there's smaller things that we've uncovered, more subtle, refined areas of what exercise does to human health.
I mean, there's a lot of physiology involved, pushing your circulation around. I mean, the way that your body heals requires certain nourishment. It requires fresh oxygen, fresh nutrients. You got to be able to get your intellect, your intelligence, your awareness needs to go to the body part to be able to fix it. It'll try it on its own, but if you got poor circulation, it's going to accumulate. Part of repairing tissues, there's a lot of waste. Just like if you were going to, I don't know, repair a building or repair a road or something, there's going to be some scraps. You got to get rid of the scraps. There's going to be, you dig up some things. There's going to be dirt. You just push that to the side, or do you take it away? To take it away, you got to have a circulation system, which is the highway system, the roads. Someone needs to have a car and take it. When you have scraps inside, when there's damage and your body repairs it, you need a highway system that takes the pollution away from that region so it can stay uncluttered. And so you got to have good circulation. Exercise does that. Now, like, there's so many different kinds of exercise, and I don't know who's really watching this. I know there's martial artists. I know there's just everybody's going to have their ideas of exercise. You could almost say, like, this isn't the actual definition, but I'm kind of stuck on this idea of spiritual health. I think spiritual health would be a balance and a harmony between mental health, physical health, and social health. Like the awareness that I am the participant involved in all three of these dimensions of health. And so exercise is very much for me, because of the emphasis in yoga of like so many people in the US and really around the world, they're like stretching and jerking their bodies for like the idea of health. A lot of yogis, they ignore social health. A lot of yogis think they're addressing mental health, but you cannot address mental health without social health, because that is the check, that is the verification of your mental health, is how you interact with other people. You know what I mean? Like, even if you don't agree with those people, there's a check on your mental health. Like, you don't have mental health if you're just arguing with everybody or don't get along with most people. So physical exercise is to raise my awareness internally, of what's going on in my body. How am I responding to my mental state? And how am I reacting and responding in social conditions and social state? And also for rapid and immediate repair of the body when disease agents come, if injuries come. Exercise is really for proper circulation, for rapid healing, and for awareness of what's going on inside my system during my mental activities and my social activities.
That's interesting. Yeah. Exercises, I've found, whenever you're exercising, whether it be socially, physically, mentally, we're doing exercises all the time. To me, exercises is some type of movement or some type of, I'd say, yeah, movement. I'd say captures it most appropriately. That pushes your boundaries, whether it be your physical limits. So if you're lifting weights or something like that, you're exercising because you're actually creating stress within your body and your musculature. If you're going out and you're talking to new people and you're meeting them for the first time, exercise is directly related to stress, is I guess what I'm uncovering through this whole thing, is that when you exercise, you're subjecting yourself to stress. So I would even say like taking a cold shower is a type of exercise. Coming back to your breathing and focusing on that is an exercise because it's stressing you mentally. Most people, there's some type of mental stress that's going on while they're breathing. And so it's anything that you do that creates stress is an exercise. Now, stress can be both good and bad. Stress enables us to grow, but also too much stress actually hampers us and will kill us. So in order to grow, we need to overcome some type of stress.
Yes.
And I think the Greeks had a term called eustress, which is like stress that's good for you. Stress, it's like EU stress. Stress that promotes growth. And then there's distress, obviously, which stress that's poor for you, or stress that's like negative for you. And so it's important to be stressed or to exercise in general, but then again, to recognize your limits to it. You can keep exercising and you keep, I don't know, pounding the dumbbells, you keep doing some arm curls, and it's great. But then after a while, you're gonna really fatigue yourself, and it's bad for your muscles when you overwork them and such. Yeah. So I guess another concept is coming back to the concept of rest and making sure that it's like, where do we find this balance of I'm working hard, but I'm also making sure to not kill myself.
Yeah, most people, I don't think it's possible for them to kill themselves exercising. It would be like holding your breath until you die. Like you're going to gasp. You're not going to be able to hold your breath until you die. You're not going to be able to exercise yourself to death. Someone else might be able to. They might drown you if they like try to swim you to death or whatever. Andrew Murillo, he's on jiu-jitsu. This is a champion jiu-jitsu fighter. He says, I think spiritual health is the healthy understanding and maintenance of our consciousness. Fascinating. As you were saying that, as Akash was saying his piece, I was saying physical exercise is bad physical exercise if it diminishes the health of my mental or social. It's bad if it takes away from the other. Your mental health is, if you're going on health, let's say mental exercises for mental health, it's bad if it makes your mind healthy at the expense of your body. And I could see how somebody would run away with that. Let's say you had like an Olympic athlete and they were the top physical health around. And, if they stop even 1 hour a day of exercise, let's say they exercise 3 hours a day, if they diminish that to 2, they're going to lose a little bit of that physical edge. They're not going to be able to stay at peak performance that they were at 3 hours a day of practice. So there needs to be like I said, some baseline. If you're so heavy into physical health, there's so many yogis yoga I think is the best physical exercise around because of the low impact to no impact, the dimensions of movement. You take so many of your joints, if not all your joints, into so many ranges of motion. There are other things like dance or martial arts that you'll get a lot of range of motion, but there are things like inversions, back bending, certain rotations that, and especially in a healthy way versus like getting torqued or like throwing your joints into certain arenas, with momentum. In the end, as you move on in your life, you're going to find more and more that yoga is one of the most safe and well-balanced exercise routine technologies on earth, if not the best. I mean, the others that you'll find will be things like Tai Chi or whatever, but I think it's better than Tai Chi because they don't do inversions or back bending. They do a little bit of back bending, but not like, they don't do inversions in Tai Chi, which is going with your heart below your center of gravity. And for a sustained period of time, so blood flows to your head. So, spiritual health, mental health, physical health, social health, the physical exercise, where does rest come into that? If you're exercising so much that it's taking, that, you need rest, that's definitely taking away from your mental health, definitely taking away from your social health. You don't have energy like that. So physical exercise should, do you think, I know that you were getting tired and exhausted, Akash, because you said you were only sleeping like a couple hours a day or 4 hours a day for the last few days. So that, it sounds like that has less to do with physical exercise and more to do with either mental health or social health. Would you agree? You're muted.
Yes, it's probably a combination of the two, I'd say. I'd say it's probably more so, it's a combination, yeah, mental and social, I'd say. A little bit of physical as well. There's been times where I haven't been stretching or exercising as much as I could be. But that's interesting that you say that. I mean, I think I really do have a belief that we don't necessarily need as much sleep as we think we do.
Yeah.
And I continue to test that hypothesis. But it's important to have all of these things in balance, though. I think if you have these in perfect balance, or as perfect balance as you can achieve, there is less need for sleep. In the sense of, as we're talking about, mental, physical, and social. So
yeah, we have obviously Andre. Man, it's a tattoo, but I tell you what, Andre's asking me about the tattoo on my collar, on my sternum right there. I'm displeased with it. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm not super pleased with it. So I'm not gonna like brag about it right now. Maybe as I change my mind about it, or if I add to it or do something, then I'll show it off. It's one of those things that I'm okay that I made a decision, and maybe I'll come to love it. So we got IMC Andre says a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. That's a wiki definition. Yeah, I think it's really important. Like, if you guys got something different from being here, because you can go wiki definition things, and what's the take that I want you to take away? Definitely social health goes way underemphasized. Your mental health is suffering if you don't have your social health. Social health, when you try to do these three, mental health, social health, physical health, you're going to awaken limiting beliefs. You're going to awaken insecurities or doubts that you have around the other subjects. And like you were saying, less sleep. Something AZD taught, my teacher, Arash Sapardibazar, he says, as long as you're exchanging ideas with somebody, you don't need sleep. You're not tired anymore. And as long as you can get ideas exchanging, which is like good communication, then you won't need sleep. So that would be social health. There will be problems will come up with that, because your posture will fall apart, your circulation will fall. You'll eventually start getting body aches and things like that. And you can communicate with your body. You can do things with communication and socializing that will diminish your awareness of like physical infirmities, as they say. But then it's apparent that at some point, at some lower limit, you need to start addressing your physical. If you're not addressing your physical, there should be something every day that you do that addresses your physical. Start raising your awareness about what's going on in your physical system. And as you engage in social interactions, if you're intelligent, and especially, if this is something you're practicing, guys, I didn't learn yoga without a coach. I didn't learn mental health without a coach. Now, there might have been, I did some self-study on books or whatever, but that's like a coach via a book. I was studying somebody. I wasn't trying to figure it out on my own. And with social, you're going to quickly spin off and spiral off into, past desires, past patterns. There are lots of people that are socialites that have been out and going out and they're socializing and they're socially, like you could almost say calibrated, but they've really pinned themselves into a narrow bandwidth of being because they fit themselves in the social matrix and they never broke free of that, of wherever they were in the social hierarchy. And, there'll be people that have been going out for 20 years and they're still drinking and going out to the same bars and they're social, but they are fixed in a certain area of their social matrix. And they're not mobile. They're not expanding. They're not growing. They're just like situated there and they're excelling at their narrow niche. And, when you're going into self-improvement and personal development, you go into the social matrix, it's important to have a coach. Have somebody as a reference that can point out when you're, missing the target. And this is what the whole Tabiat weekend was that I went to train with my teacher, Arash. I was missing the target. So, and if you only go that route, you're going to find physical that you're lacking in physical. If you only go physical, you're going to find that you're lacking in social. And no amount of physical exercise will feed that part of you that needs social interaction. And no amount of social interaction is going to heal that part of your mind that needs harmony, that needs a harmonizing. If you got conflicting beliefs and ideas, that needs to be addressed as something separate from just interacting with people. And, spiritual, as Andrew says, I think spiritual health is the healthy understanding and maintenance of your consciousness. That's super interesting. Maintenance of that it suggests that spiritual health is that you must be aware of something separate from your consciousness. How can you maintain your consciousness if you are your consciousness? You are the one maintaining the consciousness. Now, if you go that route with the logic, you're clearly going to see that how can you maintain your body unless you're not your body? No car maintains itself. No grave maintains itself. There's a grave keeper that maintains the grave. And of course, your social identity, your social interaction, like you can understand and maintain your social interactions and your social well-being. That means you are not your social identity. You are the one maintaining it. So the awareness of you are the one doing these modes of health is a spiritual health, is how I'm understanding it now. I reserve the right to get smarter, guys, as I get better at this. So that's my piece. I'll hand it over to Akash, and then, yeah.
Yeah, brother, this is like a very, very interesting conversation. For me, particularly because of the industry that I work in with biotech and pharmaceuticals. But then also it's like the intersection of this and yoga. This is where I love talking about health, and it's so important. I mean, you cannot do anything if you don't have health. In other words, like you could have all the money. You could have
Sorry, Akash, a little bit, it broke up just a little bit.
Be healthy and walk around or some such thing, then what does it matter?
Yeah, it broke up a little bit.
It seems like I'm maybe frozen right now,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I leave it to you to continue discussing.
Okay, guys, we got a minute. If you got any comments, questions, what is this? Real on Instagram. Who is this person? Real Antello. Would certain activities that you make as eustress may actually be de-stressing for you? Or will your mind override the actual physical? What is this question? Would certain activities that I think you mean call eustress, that you would call eustress, may actually be distressful for you? Yeah, I mean, it sounds like sometimes if you call something eustressful, meaning it's like healthy stress, is it possible to sometimes mistake a distressful activity as eustressful? Sure, of course. Discernment is important. Is what you're doing actually, it's like when you go to the exercise and they're like, it's a healthy burn, or, you think you're doing something that's benefiting you, but then it turns out it was damaging for you. I think in the long term, unless you push way too far, which is like a really rare, like nobody here does that you're going to at least gain in your awareness of cause and effect. How much is pushing too hard? What are the consequences of these actions? If you're doing, let's say, physical exercise, you think it's eustress, but it's really you're doing too much. Or if you think it's mental health, but you're doing too much and not addressing the other areas of health. Same with social. You go out way too much, but you never address your own state of mind when you're by yourself. You don't address your physical body. It is stressful, but it's de-stressing. It's distressful for the other, not de-stress. Distress. It's funny, this word stress has so many suffixes. It's distressing other areas of your body or of your being. So yeah, it's essential to have discernment. I think I'm keep pointing it out. A coach is essential. Somebody that has some semblance of like balance and well-being that you can look at and admire at least somewhat and be like, okay, I'm seeing a different reference for how to be. And I hope to be this for the yoga world. A reference for social well-being that can corroborate physical well-being. Obviously, mental well-being is in there. And I want to be that reference because I want to be that reference for myself because I didn't have that reference. And, for example, my teacher is Arash Dibazar. His mental health and his social health is immaculate, the best on earth. His physical health is pretty damn good, and he's getting a lot healthier. When I met him, he wasn't that healthy. He's getting a lot better. I would say when it comes to physical, I don't know, and things like he chipped a tooth and he hasn't gone and repaired it for like a month or 2 months or something. He's living with it. Why? Because he doesn't want to go to the dentist. His time is more valuable. I think it's a really interesting character. It's a really interesting decision to watch him do that. It's like you can tell sometimes he's in pain. I'm like, I would just go to the dentist, but he has proven himself to be so much more successful in the areas of life that I consider important that I'm willing to totally indulge in the possibility that I wouldn't do that. That, man, if I chipped a tooth, what would it be like if I was him and not doing that? And so he's giving me a reference for how to being that's causing me to think because I admire so much of his overall health, his mental and social health, that I'm willing to look and observe and analyze for myself. And he's on his journey too. If I had came to him 3.5 years ago as a reference for physical health, I would have been disappointed. He was kind of tubby and whatever. So yeah, when it comes to eustress and de-stress, whatever your idea of positive stress is, you got it from somebody. So you didn't make it up on your own. For example, just the idea of eustress. So you're thinking that you're doing something that's going to be healthy for you. If it turns out it's unhealthy for you, you, as like Andrew points out, jiu-jitsu champion points out, understanding and maintenance of your consciousness. You must understand and maintain your well-being. If what you're doing, or your health, if what you're doing is damaging your well-being and your health, then it's up to you to acknowledge that. Someone outside of you can point your attention on it, but ultimately it's your attention that gets pointed on it. Because I could point it out all day, and if your attention doesn't go there, nothing happens. So I hope that answered your question. Real Antello, Akash, do you have anything to say on that? Like when you mistake eustress for a distressful activity, or vice versa?
Yeah, I think you actually hit the nail on the head. I don't have much more to add to that. So
nice. Yeah, discernment is key. I could simplify my answer to say discernment is key. That's true. And we could have moved on to another question. So let's see. I don't see other comments, so that's good for today, guys. We'll catch you tomorrow. We'll do this time 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. We may be changing the times for upcoming because I'm going on tour and we want to be able to do this. So we're going to find a common time that's consistent that we can do that. So if you're catching this, on iTunes, leave us a review. If you're catching this on any of the other platforms, read the description, see what the time is that we do these podcasts. The Zoom link will be there. And definitely, if you're on Facebook, join our Enlightened Masculinity Facebook group. We're doing a Sangha tonight, which is a kind of lecture on the first Saturday of every month. We do a donation lecture. I highly encourage everyone to attend. If you found this beneficial, we're just having a dialogue about health and wellness. We'll give some techniques tonight. It'll be actually filled with content just for you. So go to Enlightened Masculinity on Facebook groups and ask to join that. And other than that, you know where to find me on ninthlimb.com. That's where you can find my training programs and so on. Any final plugs from you, Akash?
yes, Rising Suns, we continue to have yoga hikes. So if you're interested, reach out to me. This is in the New York, New Jersey area, Northern Jersey. I'd also say to, yes, as Chris mentioned, like, comment, subscribe to the podcast if you've enjoyed this content. And the last piece is we have Sunset Club tomorrow. So bringing together the most innovative, interesting, beautiful people, and we'll watch sunset together. So
wow,
if you're interested in any of these things, reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to guide you along these experiences.
Those would make good YouTube videos. If you have a good lookout for like a sunset, just
Mm-hmm.
behind you watching the sunset, and you can speed it up later, and that's a fascinating video. And then you can like overdub some dialogue or something. Those have been some of my more popular videos. It's just speeding up a sunset and then talking over it.
Hmm.
You know, so you could give some ideas about sunset. About, well, I don't know if you're doing that. I would take advantage of that opportunity. Of that, you're watching sunset, just set up a camera behind you, recording yourself watching sunset. It's amazing. We'll watch on YouTube. So, all right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Blessings. Namaste.